My name is Doug Perry. I am going on 83 years old. Actually, I'm a very recent Judan in karate after 64 years in karate and 74 years of fighting. I started fighting in 1946 in the ring. I fought up through 1956, but while I was at Paris Island, I was training with the Marine Corps boxing team. And I was in casual company because I had pneumonia the same day I graduated from boot camp, of all things, and ended up in the hospital. So I was training, trying to get myself back together while I was in casual company. And I saw these guys over in the corner. And I remember this in 1956. I had heard the word judo, but to my knowledge, I'd never heard the word karate. But I went over to them, and being on the Marine Corps boxing team, back in the 50s, boxing in the military was huge. I mean, it was, cutthroat, brutal, etc. So I went over because I watched, they were kicking each other, and throwing each other down. That was, I could understand the judo side of it, but I couldn't understand it since I didn't know what karate was. Now that's why they were kicking each other and fighting. And the gentleman said, there two or three of them, a couple of them were Shorin-ryu, and a couple of judoka. There was only like 4 or 5 guys over there. And so that, they said, hey, good luck, with this, that, and the other, and the Marine Corps boxing team, and et cetera. And I said, could I try that? And, the guy said, if you want to. And so I got out there, and the next half an hour I spent looking up at the ceiling. I was used to boxing. I wasn't used to somebody kicking my feet out from under me. And we got through. And I mean, they really bounced me around there. The judo guys were standing over there watching a couple of karate guys. Every time I'd move, I had to be blinding fast because I was a flyweight, 112 pounds. But after it was over, he said, well, what did you think of it? I said, man, I love this. And I started training, but keeping in mind back then, there was only a few people that had come over, right after, the Korean War and World War II and this, that, and the other, had come back and were teaching karate. And we didn't have a lot of people. It was wherever I went, it wasn't necessarily an association. It wasn't necessarily any systems. You had a member, even up to 1970, 69, 70, Sensei Bill Hayes and I were at Cherry Point, and we set up a dojo there, and we had a Taekwondo guy in there who was a Pratt and Whitney something or other, Shorin-ryu, we had Isshin-ryu, etc. And we didn't care, But it was like that for a long time. You didn't have a dojo. You just had a bunch of people coming together. And to me, that's what karate should be. It is not a matter of an association. Association means associate. You associate with each other, people that are of like mind. You're training to make yourself and others that you associate with better. If you're not doing this, you may as well go out and play tennis or something, as far as I'm concerned. Well, my attitude toward karate, and it's almost our attitude and I have to kind of preface something a little bit. Me and my son both, and so many guys have been in combat, war. We hate war, okay? But I love combat, and that might be and say, how can you love, hate war and love combat. It's the same thing. If I teach karate as a life protection art, not as a sport, okay? But it's the same thing. I know my son commands the 4th Marines. He trains his Marines to go to war, and then you pray that you never have to. It's the same thing in training karate, that you train to win. There are no silver medals in a life protection situation, okay? If your life's in danger, your family, there's no silver medal in that when it comes down to it. If you lose, you lost more. But karate to me is, over the years, you develop. My son wrote a history of my life, so to speak. And in that, he observed me going from my young man's karate to an old man's karate, But I went through the, competition things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Up through my 60s, I was still competing. But I never let my competition karate interfere with my real desire to better myself, but more importantly, to better my students, the people who had come to me wanting to study. I never taught karate for money. I charge a minimal amount, enough to pay the rent on the building. Sometimes I didn't do that. But, if you came into my dojo and asked me about joining, I'd say, yes, I do not have a problem with that, but you should go look at other dojo, then come back and talk to me. And that's kind of how I look at karate, that I could help them. I had people in my dojo didn't pay anything because I had them looked at and knew that they couldn't afford it. But I would not let that, But I do not look at karate as a sport. I look at karate as an art. And the only thing I've learned in 64 years of karate, and I don't mean this, humble Joe, so to speak, is I don't know anything. We talk about going up a mountain. That stupid mountain goes this way. So it's not a matter of arriving. The only thing this does is kind of hold my gi together, so to speak. Okay, so you look at this, not the patch, the heart. And to me, that's the most important part of what we do in teaching karate. And when I say, the only thing I've learned in 64 years is I don't know anything. But it's not, there's not an ending to this. There's not, an ending. You enjoy the journey. You keep saying, well, I'd like to be a Godan, a Rokudan, a Nanadan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in attaining most of this is self-expression. And kind of think back when you went to school or in dojo, or anybody could think back over this. You took a test to impress your teacher to get a good grade, okay? If you were going out for midget baseball, you did the best you could to impress your coach. In your dojo, when you were trying to get away from being a white belt, you had to do what? You had to impress your judges, the people that were testing you. When you competed, you had to, whether it be, kobudo, kata, kumite, you had to please a judge. That's what you were doing. And eventually, through karate, in my opinion, you try to grow to where you have self-understanding, not self-expression, where you're doing things for yourself without looking at reward or or anything like that. My life being what it was or is, okay, or what it has been when you live in 82 years, let's be honest, I am probably not going to live another 82 years. But I did come up in poor, very poor. I was adopted when I was 8 months old. And keeping in mind, this was during the war and right after the Depression, since I was born in 1937. And my parents did the best they could. My adopted parents were old. They could neither read nor write, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Typical, mill village type thing in the South. I'm not whining or crying about it, okay? And I finally got through high school. Totally sure, but I think I got a standing ovation from the teachers when I graduated from high school. My daddy took me down to see, for people that may be in the military that remember tech sergeants in the Marine Corps, Tech Sergeant McCullough in Charlotte, and my daddy took me down to put me in the Marine Corps. I did not volunteer. I had some problems as a teenager. I mean, not drugs or anything like that. I just was a problem child. Anyway, the tech sergeant said I was too little to get in the Marine Corps. Okay, too short, didn't weigh enough. And my daddy told him, he said, well, he's, won about 40 Golden Gloves championships. And like I said, in the 50s, boxing was big. They called headquarters Marine Corps, and somebody up there knew who I was. And he said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Tech Sergeant Color said the guy called him back about 15 minutes later and said, we don't care if he weighs 40 pounds, put him in. So I got to Parris Island and got through Parris Island and, the rest of the story. But talking about Okinawa, I first came to Okinawa in 1964, okay? I went to, on the way to Vietnam, 65 I may have got here. Yeah, I just got married and, I went to Vietnam. But I got here in late 64, early 65, and we kind of knew where we were going. But I had been training in, with the Shorin-ryu guys and this, that, and the other, and they had mentioned Tatsuo Shimabukuro. So I wandered down to the Okinawa Dojo. Actually, I went to Special Services, and I paid $1, and I got a certificate that allowed me to go to Tatsuo's dojo for free. And Tatsuo Sensei did not speak any English. And of course, I spoke absolutely no Japanese, and we had about 4 or 5 Marines in there and 6, 7 Okinawans in the old Okinawa dojo. And you come in and he would just point at the maki board, and I would go over there and just do, boom, 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 and normally in Shiko dots. Anyway, being a boxer, I was used to throwing that shoulder, and he didn't know how to tell me not to. Instead of this, I was doing this. And he come by, he paralyzed me. I mean, he hit me, and that arm just went. And but I would leave there with bloody knuckles, and there were no counts in kata. You learned this, and you worked on it till you came back to the dojo. And you walk back, wherever you were, but Meritorious, Courtney, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was brutal. But then he would go up there and sit on his little thing and have his tea and talk to us for about 15 minutes. And no one had a clue what he was saying. So we'd sit there respectfully to that. And then after he would, just get up and go in his house, and then here come the Marines. We'd get out there and start kumite. That was fighting time, and that was my beginning. And I have been lucky. I've had the opportunity over the years to study with 6 or 7 of the senior Okinawan masters, including Tatsuo, his brother, Eizo, Shimabukuro, and know a lot of these guys from, later on, and et cetera. And opportunity changed with him. Oyata Sensei came to the States. He and I, he called me old man. He was older than I am. But he called me old man because I'd been over here so many times, and he was a good friend. And his senior student, Jim Globe, died, and Taika could not understand that. He says, why could they not fix Jim? And he had done everything for Jim to take over, and it just didn't happen that way. But in my influence, I studied with Jiro Shiroma up at Fatima. I studied with Yoshi, Takuma Yoshi, who was up near the Punja, and it was not a system. It was his uncle, his cousin, and 2 other people was the entire association, if you want to call it that. I spent quite a bit of time with Nakazato Shiguro, and in the 80s, I re-hooked up with Sensei Nakazato and et cetera, and the rest of its history. The Okinawan people, not just the karateka, but the Okinawan people have a sense of their heart and their mind. Kokoro is the same thing, that they are good people. They've never been warlike. And, they literally, like in understanding fighting, when you absorb a punch, they absorb things that have taken over to them that were maybe not good, But I think that the one thing that I have learned, maybe the most important thing, is that I will never learn it all, And of course, I don't claim to know it all. I would like to know it all, but I know I can't live that long. But I have realized in later life that I'm not going to get to a certain point, but I have enjoyed the journey for 64 years, and the things that I've learned from the Okinawans is that they are good people. They are good-hearted people. Not all of them study karate, but they are good people, and I've really enjoyed my time here. The one thing I regret is that I never, even with, my son tells me, even if I spoke Japanese with this southern drawl, we'd have a problem. But I regret that I did not learn the language enough to really understand. My son is fluent, really fluent Japanese, and understands the culture. And I envy him that. But at the same time, I'm proud of him. And now his son is looking at the Okinawan culture and how it is. And I think by being here, that a person, if he studies karate and never gets to Okinawa, he's missing something. I think you have to come over here and look at it and experience where it started. I think one of the most devastating things that I have seen recently is the Shuri Castle. And that was just horrible. Anyway, that's what I've gotten out of karate. I'm not a physical giant or anything like that, or a great fighter or a great kata, a great kobudo, or anything like that. And it doesn't matter to me now. I just simply would like to enjoy whatever time I have left in this journey to make it good. As I was saying earlier, the one thing that I regretted was that I never got command of the language.
Right.
I was sort of functional when I was over here, but then you go back and you lose it. But what I'm so envious of you about is the fact that, when you went to college, you studied Japanese, you'd been working with us for years and understood dojo language, but not conversation. And then you went to Brigham Young for a year and studied Japanese. Then you went on your mission. But you went on your mission. Then you came back, went back, and then went to Marine Corps and went through all sorts of Japanese stuff. So that's the one thing that I guess if I was jealous, that's what I'm jealous of.
Well, I think though that there are a lot of people who came to Okinawa early on and brought karate back to the United States. And sometimes we might say first generation karateka, but the reality is that those first generation karateka, like your generation, really, because the access was so limited.
Yep, that's true.
Time was limited. Yep. Access was limited. Social media didn't exist. And karate at the time, I don't think at the time anybody considered the fact that somebody could actually could sustain themselves teaching or doing karate.
Yeah.
And it was your teachers who kind of recognized that there was interest out there, gave you a taste of it, just enough of a taste of it that you wanted to continue to do it for the rest of your lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of prepared the way for us, people like me, where I've been able to live in Japan and learn Japanese, and now to build networks here in Okinawa, and to maintain those networks even when we're not in Okinawa.
Yep, that's right.
Those are things that you never had available to you, and yet that's where you took us. And you might not recognize that. Your generation might not recognize that.
I don't think most.
But that's where you took us.
I don't think that most do. But some of these guys I actually look at now because of the network type things and being able to come over here. That I look at some of the very senior Okinawan karateka as friends.
Sure.
Right. And not because I'm older than they are. Which I may be for the most part, but because that we have established a friendship back and forth.
Right.
Them come over to here, there, we come over here, and that's why I always told my students that, and a lot of my students have been with me for 30 years, had never been to Okinawa, and I've just brought 9, and myself 10. For the first time that they've seen the island, and we can't slow them down.
They're loving it.
But
they're loving it.
Everybody should see the place where it began.
I think in Okinawa, if you live in Okinawa and were raised in Okinawa, karate is one part of the culture you are in every day.
Yes.
If you start training in America or Europe or South America, wherever you begin training, if it's not in this culture, having grown up with Okinawan values and chimigukuru, that we go to the dojo, and the dojo is a place that is completely outside of the culture we grew up in. And so it's incomplete because karate can't exist in a vacuum. It has to. It developed within the culture and the history of Okinawa. Yep. And so I think we have to study how it came to be, or we can't really understand why karate developed the way it did. And so, once again, I think now we have access to so many things. The Karate Kaikan is set. There's people who are here to help people who are interested in karate go to places where they can learn about the art they study and dedicate their lives to. I think it's neat, and it's something that that really is only recently available to now our generation. So hopefully we can continue that journey and
well, something I hadn't seen was the Kaikan.
Kaikan was a neat experience.
I went in there and went, gee whiz, keeping in mind that our dojo wasn't even indoors.
Right.
It was in the backyard type thing.
In 2 generations, we've gone from 4 or 5 people in gi that don't fit them, or
or no gi at all.
Yeah. Training in a courtyard.
Yeah.
To training in large locations where you can go to the teachers, and the teachers will come to you, and you can learn.
Well,
it's a pretty neat
beautiful.
Place
It's a Kaikan. That was just impressive. That
Absolutely.
was impressive. I could have walked around there for all day, but
a lot of people have done a lot to bring that together. So it's
or being able to go see where the war was and what the Okinawan people actually went through.
Experience.
And that I think through that, you gain a more respect for the Okinawan culture.
Right.
That, they didn't jump in the war, this, that, and the other. They absorbed.
Right.
Not by naturally wanting to, but that was their nature.
And I'd offer the word absorb is resilient. And I think we can learn a lot from their ability to absorb and be resilient, and yet to maintain the humanity and the love of life they have. That's what's impressed me about being here.
And everything you see over here. They love to sing, they love to dance, they love to play drums.
They love to associate with each other.
Yeah, they are great visitors.
That's right.
They love to do that. Where, unfortunately, and of course I'm not one of them because I'm not intellectually smart enough to use them, but you see this all the time, especially among our youth. They just too much of this.
Right.
And not enough of having to see what's going on, what's going on.
From that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice and easy. Whoops.
I think the happiness, and I want to use the happiness of karate, I've been able to have it because of someone named Joy. Okay,
right.
Most husbands go off and study karate and run a dojo and neglect their wives and family. Sometimes it's tough, but I had a wife who was strong enough, and keeping in mind I had 3 tours in Vietnam while this one and the rest of them were going up, and she raised them. But my wife passed away about 13 years ago, but she was a driving force in the lives of all of my children, my life, and all the people in the karate world loved her. She often said the one person she didn't fear was me. But bless her heart. But that helped so much for my journey, that she supported me in it, not knowing a thing about it. And that was the happiness that I had for that.
I think learning that results aren't immediate, that things that are worth achieving come at great sacrifice and work. I think that's something that we learn in karate, if taught correctly, that's very important, has been important in my life. In combat, like actual combat, the fact that it could always be worse, and but to keep your head on straight even when things around you are a little chaotic. That's been a real valuable lesson that I've learned through karate, that I learned in the dojo.
I think that's good.
And patience.
And patience.
Patience. One more time. Moika.
Does that make any sense at all?